Is Ben with it? Oh, good. We've got both Ben and Brian. All right. So this is not a formal Hanford Advisory Board meeting, but it is a meeting to which HAB members and alternates have been invited, as well as members of the public and other people who are interested. Gary, do you want to say a couple of words of introduction before we jump in?
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting. And as Ruth has mentioned, this is not a HAB meeting as we are used to it, so we will not be taking any HAB business. Appointment letters did go out last night. This is an overview of the 5-year plan as presented by Ben Hart and Brian Stickney, deputy managers at Hanford. And this is the opening discussion of what we're looking at for the next 5-year plan. We're taking input from multiple organizations, public, tribes, HAB, and so your attention is appreciated. And let's kick it off. Do we have any other announcements, Ruth? If we don't have anything, then let's go on and get started with Brian and Ben.
Yeah, let me do just a quick agenda overview and check on the phone. 2499. Who do we have with us on that line? I will ask again later. There's a reason I'm asking. So this is a meeting in two. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. And you are?
Okay. Yes, good morning. This is Lorraine Contreras with the Yakima Nation. I'm at 2499.
Great. Thank you for letting me know, because I want to make sure when we get to the round robin, I get you in the queue to share with the group if you have something to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So this meeting's in two parts, basically. We have Brian Stickney and Ben Hart from DOE who are going to do the overview of the 5-year plan. We'll check in with the regulators, EPA and Ecology, and then wrap up the first section with clarifying questions. The point being, if you have questions about what does this mean, what is this thing in the plan, it's more about helping you understand what the 5-year plan is and what is in it. After the break, we're going to go essentially around the room. So just imagine it's a really big conference table. And then each of you will be invited to make whatever comment is on your mind. I'll look at the time and how many participants we have, and if we need to focus ourselves in 3-minute pieces, we can do that. The way we're going to do that is I'm going to use the participant list in Teams, and I'm just going to go down the list. So what that means is the people on the phone will go first. So we've got Tom Rogers and Laureen Contreras. That's why I asked who was on the phone. And then I'm just going to go down the list as if we're going around the room. So the normal HAB way of getting in the queue through chat or raising your hand, we're actually not going to do it that way for this meeting, because I want to make sure I that I invite everybody who happens to be on the meeting, regardless of how they found us. Questions about how we're going to dance through the meeting today?
I have a question about, I know that this is Ginger. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Ginger with Ecology. I know that people, one of the new members received his formal notice yesterday. Did you guys scramble to make sure that the officially approved people are able to be here today? And it wouldn't be your job, Gary, or somebody. Did somebody scramble to make sure they knew about this meeting?
Hi, Ginger. Yes, this is Gary, and we've done everything we can to let not only have members but the public know that this meeting is available and open.
The other thing we did, the other thing we did was Josh got with the webmaster yesterday or the day before, and we added a category on the HAB website at hanford.gov called other meetings or other public meetings. I can't remember the words we used. And so even though this isn't a formal HAB meeting, it's an open public meeting, we will be putting Josh's summary and the recording of this meeting on that place on the HAB page so that people can find it if they aren't with us today. I know we've got a number of people who are at the NAS meeting, so trying to make it as accessible as we can, given that the news about the packets came in kind of late yesterday afternoon. Any other questions before we turn it over to Brian and Ben? All right. So, okay, I'm going to pull up the presentation. There we go. Sorry. And there.
All right. Thanks, Ruth. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you all see the presentation?
Looks like you're projecting it clear to me.
All right.
Well, hey, we appreciate the time to meet with everyone today. You know, I'm Brian Stickney. I'm the Deputy Manager for the Richland Operations Office, and my fellow Deputy Ben Harp is here with me today, and we're here to talk to you about our Hanford Site 5-year plan, which is in draft form at this point. And so this is what we're thinking, but an important part of the process is getting your input as vital stakeholders, members of the public, as well as the input of our tribal nations that are here in the area. Let's go to the next slide, please. Wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the origins of the 5-year plan, what it is not. And so essentially the 5-year plan is not required anywhere in any regulatory documents. It is a good business practice that we started about 2 years ago. And really what we looked at was there is an existing EM strategic vision that's published each year. It's sort of a 10-year look at the overall environmental management cleanup program. It speaks at a very high level, and we wanted to have an accompanying document which speaks to a little bit more granularity on a shorter time frame. And so what we're attempting to depict through the 5-year plan and have for the last couple of years is, you know, the cleanup work planned to be completed or at least started during the next 5 fiscal years, so fiscal 22, which we're just starting now, through fiscal 26. And then also provide a status for what we had said we hope to accomplish in fiscal 21 and where we're at with those things. It was really intended to be a communication tool, and the document that's like pictured there on the slide, it's a 1-pager with a front and a back. And certainly we will not ask you all to read any of those eye charts. We're going to break down some of the specifics as we go through today. But I did want to highlight a couple of things here. You know, first, the development of a 5-year plan, this plan, it's an iterative process. So we have this out here as a mark on a wall with a lot of assumptions that we'll go through of what we're doing and what we're planning on. We intend to seek, you know, that's why we're here today, is to seek your input through this process so that then we can adjust this plan. And then even though we're going to ask for your input by a certain date, when you provide other input, it will not be forgotten. It just may not be added to the plan until the next year's iteration of it. And so it's a constantly evolving document. You know, I do want to, I guess, highlight a couple of things that, you know, we don't get to holistically decide what we do in and of itself. We don't have that unilateral ability. What we do is governed by many things. First and foremost is the will of Congress, who appropriates funds to us and allocates those in specific PBSs for us to execute work to. A lot of our planned cleanup is also dictated by the cleanup priorities established by the milestones in the TPA, which are jointly developed between EPA, Ecology, and ourselves. And then lastly, there are existing court judgments that direct the priorities of the cleanup as well. And as we're going through this, I would ask you, as you're looking through this, really the best area for input of priorities where we can really make substantial changes and affect outcomes is in fiscal 24, 25, and 26. And we'll get into the reasons for that here in the next couple of slides as Ben goes through the federal budgeting process. A lot of the decisions with regards to 22 and 23 have either already been made or are well down the process because of the repetitive nature of the and ongoing basis of the federal budgeting process. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben, who's going to cover how this nests in our overall business rhythm in terms of where the 5-year plan fits, and then also the federal budgeting process. So Ben, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, as Brian mentioned, you can see where the Hanford site 5-year plan summary's at, and you can see how that feeds into the EM strategic vision annual update. And then from there, as we go through the public comment periods as required by the tri-party agreement and other requirements, as we go out to the site for public briefings and the out-year priorities, it helps us inform the budget formulation. And like Brian said, the keys are 2024 to 2026 at this point, because on the next slide, I'll be showing you the budget formulation process that we go through. We've also entered into what we call the Hanford Integrated Priority List. We're working with Ecology and the Environmental Protection Agency to determine, what our priorities are on the site as a whole, not only from Brian's standpoint on the RL side, and the ORP side, but as a priority from a holistic standpoint, and that fits into the budget development also, and this all fits into strategic vision and the Hanford mission. So with the new contract, the Hanford Mission Integrated contract that we have, they help us formulate these documents that inform us through public comment, overall EM strategy, and local strategic vision to accomplish the mission that we have. And they run integrated baselines and help us out with helping us decide what the priorities are for the site itself. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. So within the federal government, we're always running 3 different budgets at the same time. We have the execution budget, which is fiscal year 2022 right now, because we just hit the fiscal year less than a month ago. So we're executing that budget, which right now we're in a continuing resolution, but we're looking forward to getting that budget passed at some point and executing that budget. And then you can see the other one is the Congressional Formulation phase budget, and so that is the next year's budget that we are in the process of formulating. So that starts out with, you can see the Office of Management budget, which is the presidential part of the budget gets submitted. And you can see that in the blue where it says OMB and agency formulation phase. and you can see we're going through that part of it right now. And then you can see that it goes to, and that's the third budget where we're actually working on. And you can see the congressional formulation phase as the budget gets submitted by the president, and then it goes through committees in the House and the Senate, and they do some adjustments and before the budget's passed. And then because we're working on the submittal of the 23 budget, the key is, as Brian said, for input, look at the 24 through 26 for input into this 5-year plan, because these budgets have been, the 3 budgets have been formulated. There can be readjustments in Congress on the 23 budget, but as far as from a agency standpoint, we work for the president, and that's been submitted. So so we're always juggling 3 budgets at a time, and the key takeaway from this is look at 24 through 26, because that's where the influence can happen on what the priorities are going to be for going forward. All right, next slide.
Thanks, Ben. So this is the overall placemat, which again, it's an eye chart up here on the slides. You all have either been provided this or it will be provided for your review and comment. A couple of things to highlight here, though, overall, and we're going to break it down into the specifics on more reasonable slides. First is, everything we're going to talk about today is really binned into 3 areas: river corridor cleanup, central plateau cleanup, and then tank waste cleanup. And those are color coded on the left with little arrows kind of spaghetti charting all over the site. And I think that image there really depicts the integrated nature of our cleanup effort right now. There is not true RL work versus true ORP work. There are a lot of interdependencies as we continue to progress the mission along. The right side of the chart here really is going through the major components of the cleanup mission as well as the goals at a very high level. But I do want to highlight these enabling assumptions. And these are assumptions that we've made in developing this draft product and that we need to keep in mind. First is that I'm getting a lot of feedback. If someone could mute, that'd be great.
All right, so I'm going to mute everybody.
Okay, I'm back with you, Ruth. Can you hear me now? You're muted yourself. Okay. I see a okay sign. So the first enabling assumption is we're assuming an annual funding profile combined between ORP and RL of 2.6 billion escalated each year. And so this assumes that there will not be a significant increase in funding for the Hanford site over the next 5 years, but that it'll be consistent with what we've received in the near future. The second enabling assumption is that regulatory permits, timeliness is there, as that we're getting those on the schedules we need to accomplish the cleanup objectives, as well as we do not assume failure on these projects. So if there are operational events and stuff, certainly that would impact things in the cascading years. And then the third assumption here, and I think it's important to note, is that COVID-19 effects and the force majeure impacts of those are not fully incorporated into this. And that's simply because we have not fully recognized and realized all of the impacts of COVID-19 as the pandemic continues. But it is certainly impacting our work and may adjust these dates, as well as different appropriations and how they come in on the different fiscal years. Let's go to the next slide. This is really the other side of the placemat when you have it, and it breaks down the work. So again, that homework, that report card for fiscal 21 of the work we've done, what we completed, what we intend to carry over, and then the 5 years that are spelled out here. I want to highlight this is not inclusive. This is not all the work we're going to be doing. So in certain years, you may see like 2 items for River Corridor. There's a lot of other work going on. These are simply the highlights, the major activities that are either signifying the completion of cleanup or are highlighting preparatory steps necessary to progress cleanup that's scheduled in the out years. And even as we go through these fiscal year by fiscal year, Ben and I probably won't bore in on the specifics of each of these items listed, but certainly welcome for your feedback or clarifying questions later on. With that, let's go to fiscal 21, and we'll just start walking through the years. Ben, you're up.
All right. As Brian said, this is kind of a year in review. We're into fiscal year 2022. And you can see that the check marks are what was accomplished, and then the arrows going to the right show that what we're putting in the out years. And you got to recognize that a lot of work was done despite the challenges we had in fiscal year 2021 with COVID and other things. So it's a pretty good thing. You'll see that there's a lot of support activities that support these major accomplishments, like permits, a lot of paperwork, conduct of operations, things like that that aren't listed here. These are just major activities that we identified that wanted to be accomplished for the year. So as we go down to the tank waste, a major theme that you're going to see through the tank waste is tank retrieval, and you'll see starting up WTP and ramping up WTP through the 5 years. So the first was accomplished in 2021 was transition of lab, low activity waste, and balance of facilities systems to commissioning. That it says excluding effluent management facility, which is EMF. That was a facility put in place as part of direct feed law for water management. So it had a late construction start, but we were able to transfer those activities and to support WTP operations. And then you see the tank side seizing removal readiness to operate, which was a major accomplishment. That was the pre-treatment system that removes the major radionuclides to be able to stage waste to transfer to WTP. And we're actually completed that readiness to operate, and we've gone through the readiness review, and we're looking to start that up and stage that 1 million gallons of waste in December of this year, early part of next calendar year. The effluent management facility, which I mentioned, water management, the new facility we built at WTP, we completed construction on that, and actually have done a lot of work on getting that to start up this year, and I think that'll be on the next slide. And LERF, liquid effluent retention facility, and effluent treatment facility is the water that comes out of WTP that's treated that comes millions of gallons that are treated through that facility. A lot of upgrades to make sure that we can do the additional waste that's come from WTP, and then construction on the TX farm surface barrier, which is an asphalt barrier that we put over the farms that keeps liquids from driving the contaminants down to the groundwater. So a major accomplishment on that facility also. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Okay, for fiscal 21 on the Central Plateau, probably the bigger ticket. Oh, please go back to the capsule storage area construction. Completing that there in support of moving the west of capsules from wet storage to dry storage was an important milestone, and one we're very proud of that was accomplished throughout the past year. There is one item in the Central Plateau area that we did not accomplish this year that we are carrying over, and that's the completion of the fire protection infrastructure for Central Plateau raw water. That was a COVID impact on that, and our projected completion date of that is now July of 2022. And there is no risk to ongoing operations with that delay. On the river corridor side, we have just completed the retrieval now of the garnet filter media out of K West. The last STSC is awaiting shipment up to T plant, which is actually a 22 objective, and we're working the sand filter removal as well in terms of big picture items. Really what you'll see feathered throughout this presentation from the Richland side, from a risk reduction, is three major projects that we're working toward, and then preparations for a lot of follow-on year cleanup. And those three major projects are moving the capsules from wet storage to dry storage at Wessup, remediation of the 296 waste site under the 324 building, and then the work at K-Basin to, of which the garnet and sand filter removal is a part of it, but getting those last two reactors into ISS, interim safe storage, are important objectives. And then lastly is the infrastructure support to the site to enable the DFLAW mission and allow us to progress our work safely. So let's move into 22, please.
As I mentioned, a major theme here is the startup of WTP, and I do have to say that it's not only on the ORP side, but under Brian's area too. You probably saw on the one on the sheet that you looked at, the 5-year plan. There was a bunch of infrastructure and other projects that RL supports to make this happen too. So the first bullet has to do with the Sst Retrievals. We have a consent decree court-ordered milestone for completing 2 tanks in AX farm, which is AX 102 and AX 104. We have deployed 2 technologies in those tanks, put in retrieval completion for AX 102. We're evaluating AX 104 for a 3rd technology, and if we have to deploy that, we'll get that accomplished by 2022 to meet that consent decree milestone. And there's 9 tanks between AX farm and A farm that you'll see in this 5-year plan. Initiate the tank side seasoning removal operations. You saw on the 2021 that we completed the construction and ready to operate. And you can see a picture of it down below. You can see that the construction's complete, and you can see that the ion exchange pad and tank side seasoning removal has 3 ion exchange columns and filters to take out the cesium and solids out of the feed before we take it to WTP. Major operational activities start in 2022. First is loss of power testing, where we turn off the power and see what the recovery actions from an operational standpoint are. I'm sure you've heard in the past of other briefings that you do not want to lose power, and because the glass will solidify within the melters, and it could be a loss of operations for a long period of time. So we got to verify loss of power testing. Water runs, which are system runs. So we go from component testing into water runs. And then my favorite for 2022 is going to be completing the first LAW melter heat up. And we're going to do 1 melter at a time because we want to determine, since they're independent systems, if we have a problem with one side, we don't want to start up both melters at the same time. So you'll see the initiate 2nd melter below, and then more infrastructure with the water line loop to WTP. So that.
So for Central Plateau, I wanted to highlight the first one there, the completing Purex North facility complex demolition. You'll see some stuff here about the canyons in general, and a lot of this work is preparatory work for the future, risk reduction activities within the canyons, including like removal of chemical and production lines and associated glove boxes. But to get to that work, really in the middle to 2nd half of the decade, there's some preparatory work that has to happen in terms of setting up the area for workers to occupy, et cetera. And so in 22, and we've already started this activity, there's several ancillary structures there on the north side of Purex between there and the evaporator. This includes, old steam lines, the old guard shack, storage sheds, et cetera, that we will be demolishing to create the room to get our workers in there in future years, and similar activities are going to be taking place at other canyons as well. On the river corridor side, by the end of 22, and actually I suspect by the end of this calendar year, looking at current schedules, we will complete the garnet filter and sand filter media transfer to T plant down at K Basin. And we will complete by the end of the year the installation of 7 of the 22 micropiles at the 324 building. And for those that aren't familiar, really what we have to do is go in and stabilize the foundation with these micropiles, where we drill down and then pour concrete to stabilize the entire foundation of the 324 building, which sets the condition for us in future years to go in, cut the floor, remove the floor of B cell, and then remove the contaminated soil from the 300-296 waste site. So let's move on to 23, please.
All right, 23 for tank waste is kind of on the same theme. As we bring low activity waste up, we're doing the readiness reviews and to authorize hot commissioning and commencing hot commissioning of the LAW facility. And you can see that down there to the right. Looks pretty finished, ready to go. We're going to initiate the integrated disposal facility operations. This is a Richland operations project, and like I said, we're pretty integrated across the site to make the WTP operations happen. This is where the canisters are going to go for final disposition from the low activity waste and the secondary waste coming out of the LERF basin ETF facility, which does the liquid treatment. And then resume 242A evaporator operations. This is a key milestone. We had some transfer line failures coming from our tank farms that feeds the evaporator, and we need to, that evaporator is key to creating double chill tank space. So bringing that evaporator back online is key. So 23 is pretty critical to maintaining our ability to operate.
So over at Central Plateau, a couple of highlights. First, again, with the site focus being DFLAW up on the Central Plateau, it's important that CPC-Co complete the IDF upgrades by the end of fiscal year 2023, and all of the operational readiness activities will be completed so that IDF is ready to receive glass coming out of DFLAW. An important step for the whole site and points to the integration. Another one I wanted to highlight here is the completion of the 400 area fire station. This is a capital asset project we'll be starting here in the next year, and I've already done quite a bit of design work on. And it speaks to the need for some of our infrastructure upgrades. The existing fire station in the 300 area that we have is very antiquated, needs replaced, and we sought to strategically locate that at the 400 area so it can provide support to P&L in the 300 area in a timely manner, but potentially more importantly for us here with our mission at Richland and the Office of River Protection is providing support in a timely manner to the waste treatment and a mobilization facility. So that is going to be positioned up there, and is a great risk reduction activity, improving our infrastructure. River corridor side, in fiscal 23, we intend to complete the 105K East reactor interim safe storage. So we did let the contract for the foundation work, and that work is ongoing right now to support the erection of the steel structure around that reactor, and get that into a cocoon status by the end of fiscal 23. And then on the previous slide in 22, I talked about we're going to do 7 micropiles. We will complete all 22, so the 15 remaining by the end of 23 to support the waste site 300-296 remote excavation of that contaminated soil underneath there. And we'll go to 24 now.
All right, continuing on the theme of low activity waste operations, you can see that we're going to initiate those operations in 24. The consent decree milestone for start of operations is late 23, what you saw before was hot operations. Other infrastructure projects, the water treatment facility, you'll see some power needs also. So we're upgrading systems and to make sure that we have reliable systems to make the WTP operate and other site projects. And this one's kind of different, but it's to implement the West Area Risk Management. We did have a project that we've putting into place, looking at grouting waste in the West Area and sending it off site. The test bed initiative was the initial part of that. So this is to further on the test bed initiative, which was a limited volume, and this is kind of looking at putting more capacity in for treating waste in the West Area and possibly grouting it and sending it off-site. Completing AX retrievals. There's 4 tanks in AX farm, so this would be completing that. And then after we do AX retrievals, we're going to move to A farm retrieval. And then another surface barrier that we have commitments to put surface barriers in, and this would be completing construction of the U farm surface barrier. And we talked about the TX barrier earlier, that was the asphalt barrier that we had put in 2021. So this is a follow-on to that.
And for Central Plateau, we will complete by the end of fiscal 24 all of the facility upgrades to WESF needed to complete the transfer. That includes also, completing the mock-up of the equipment at Massif in previous years, so we can develop procedures and train workers. Everything will be installed and ready to go, so that in 25 we are initiating the transfer of the capsules to dry storage. And so that whole project in general will save more than $6 million annually in operating costs by the time we get those put into dry storage and start deactivating WESF, as well as put it in a safer configuration. Another one I wanted to highlight on Central Plateau that's important to us is our continue to drive all of our utilities off of Gable Mountain. With the fire there 2 years ago, we have no plans to restore utility power up there, and we have already begun removing some of the IT services from up there. So our emergency radios, cell phone towers, transistors, etc., down off of there, and we will complete that removal of the IT equipment in fiscal 24. It's a culturally sensitive area, and we're looking to comply with our own documents here on the Gable Mountain and Gable Butte resource management plan. From a river corridor perspective, we will complete the K-West Basin characterization and dewatering in fiscal 24. The basin will be characterized, drained, and grouted to allow for safe demolition of that basin, leading the way for that one at that point to be the final reactor to be put into interim safe storage or cocooned. And then we actually will intend to initiate some of that demolition of that basin in that same year. Let's move on to 25.
All right, 25, still on the same theme. We are ramping up the operations at DFLA. It's typically a 3-year ramp up to get to the nameplate of 70% total operating efficiency. So we continue to ramp up there. Initiation of the activation of the cross-site transfer system. There's 2 lines on the cross-site transfer system. One is liquids and one is sludges. We're to be able to manage between the 7 miles between the 200 East and 200 West area. We want to activate that cross-site so we can manage liquids from the west to the east. And again, I mentioned power upgrades. along with those water upgrades, and we're looking to complete the 230 kV transmission system reconditioning. And then this is a key activity is to resume the WTP high level waste facility construction. We're actually doing design right now after the technical issues we had. You've been on the HAB for a while. We had technical issues at the high level waste and the pre-treatment facility, and we've resolved those. We're in the process of redesigning based on the resolution of those issues. Congress has shown that they're going to fund us resuming design and construction of the facility. So that's a major milestone. You can see down below that that's the high level waste, what it looks like today. And because we stopped, you can see it's a lot different than the pictures you saw at the LAW facility. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Ben. Central Plateau, as I talked about on the previous slide, in 25, we will initiate the transfer of the capsules and to dry storage over at the capsule storage area. And as a spoiler for the next slide, we'll complete that activity in fiscal 26. The other one I wanted to highlight here is our current baseline has us initiating the road projects on the site. So Route 4S, primary road from the Y barricade out to the Central Plateau and the WTP. It's all of these roads are aging and need upgrades and stuff. So we'll actually be expanding 4S into a 4-lane divided highway, which will add significant safety to perhaps the most hazardous activity that all of us undergo, and that's driving to work every day, regardless of our line of work. And so we're looking forward to that. And we do have the ability, those are designed. And so, to kind of head off additional questions, if there were, an infrastructure package available, this is one of the things that we could look to accelerate with infrastructure. It's well suited to to stimulus activity. And then for those that have driven down 2S and 11A, kind of the back way as you leave the Y barricade, those roads are deteriorating. And so we'll be rebuilding those. They are currently 2 lanes each divided, and our design structure has us taking those to a single lane each way to account for the reduced traffic as we continue to get off the river corridor. Under the river corridor slides, you'll find we will complete in fiscal 25 waste site 300-296 remote excavation. So that soil will be removed and placed in the cells and ready for long-term disposition of the actual 324 building. Let's move on to 26, Ben.
All right, you can see in 26, we've ramped up the DFLAW operations. The key is the infrastructure upgrades for the next tank farm retrievals. As we move out of A and AX farm, we have to start initiating upgrades for the next tank farms we're going to retrieve. We haven't identified those at this point, but putting in ventilation systems and upgrading piping and pits and everything else that support retrieval, we need to get that infrastructure started to support continuous retrieval. And then starting the tank farm upgrades for high-level waste processing. As it's not only the high-level waste facility that we need to build, but there's upgrades within the farms to stage the waste and get it ready for feeding HLW in the 2030 timeframe. All right.
On the plateau, I mentioned on the last slide, but we will complete in 26 the transfer of the 1936 cesium and strontium capsules to dry storage. Additionally, we will complete construction of an additional supercell on URDF. The environmental restoration disposal facility was designed to be expanded as we needed, and we're looking to expand that by adding another supercell 11 by the end of fiscal 26 to continue to support site-wide cleanup efforts. That's when we forecast we'll need space for. This is another activity that could potentially be included in any stimulus as Congress works through that. Significant accomplishment on the river corridor is we will complete by the end of 26 the K West Basin demolition. And so that will set conditions for in the final years of the decade to put the K West reactor into interim safe storage and largely be complete on the river at that point, with the exception of implementing the final remedies for the rods from a groundwater perspective. Let's go to the next slide. So I mentioned at the beginning that this is, very much a draft plan and an iterative process. And that's why we're here today. We want your feedback on this. We have many mechanisms you can provide that feedback. We are asking that you provide it by November 22nd, simply so we can snap a line in the sand on this product and then begin working on the next one. But that doesn't mean that your feedback, if you provide it after that date, we'll certainly entertain it and look at it. It just probably won't be reflected on this document for this year, but we will carry it over into the other one. So there's a URL here that will be provided. There's a survey there to talk about, hey, what are your priorities? What did you see here that you liked? What didn't you like? What would you like us to prioritize otherwise? And again, as Ben indicated a couple of times, 24 to 26 are the areas that we can make the most, your feedback is the most impactful. But certainly welcome to hear comments on 22, 23 as well. Just we have less information there. We also have the website there about this draft 5-year plan, and then if you have any questions, we have a specific email inbox where we can respond to those as well. And with that, I think we're complete. We'll be standing by to answer questions, I believe, after the other agencies provide their perspectives. So back to you, Ruth.
Right. So we're going to check in with the agencies, and then for those that have questions, not comments, but questions about clarifying what's in the plan, what does it mean, we'll do that. And then after the break, we're going to do a round robin to gather your input and your thoughts and your reactions. So questions before break, comments after break. But before we go there, I want to check in with EPA and Ecology. David Bowen from Ecology, what's on your mind?
Thank you, Ruth. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. I never know which microphone's going to key up when I switch virtual. So thanks for giving me some time. Appreciate the overview and the forum today. I need to start out with I think everybody knows when it comes to budget and planning, there is a disagreement on the requirements as defined in TPA for cost, schedule, scope, integration, planning, and reporting. And going forward, hopefully we can find a resolution to our disagreement there that is more productive for all three parties. And I won't go into all the legal reasons that each of us feels like we're correct. So I just want to roll on from there. Two of the items in particular related to that, though, are we haven't received the 5-year funding targets, and I don't believe EPA has either. And so the absence of that TPA required budget information makes it difficult for Ecology to comment on priorities in any detail. And right now, we don't know whether Energy is adjusting its funding request in response to Ecology or EPA comments. So that's why that's important for us. And to go on to the presentation itself, Brian mentioned this is an overview and doesn't show all detail. So with that in mind, we had a quick preview of the presentation. And when it came to the remedial action work plan for the interim record of decision, it reflected implementation, doesn't mention permitting. We just want to make sure everyone understands there's permitting required associated with that. And then one thing I'd like to throw out there for consideration is over the last 10 months of listening, reading, and participating in meetings, my observation has been there isn't a cost code or mechanism for unexpected, unplanned, emergent activities, whether it's a failed infrastructure like a tunnel collapse or a leaking tank, or a natural event such as a wildfire. So instead, these unexpected events require redirecting funds from other projects, delaying those projects. And they just seem like annual events. Doesn't seem like it's every 5 years or something. It seems like it's every year there's something. And, so we end up with a very similar and often unsatisfactory discussion about how to address it. And so my past experience has been to incorporate a contingency or other cost estimate based on historical events and put that in the budget. I'm not sure if a similar solution could work on this project. So that's kind of my observation over the last 10 months sitting in the seat. So if there's a way, I'd like to have some discussion about ways we might do that. And so with that, great news on the HAB member packets being approved. I'm so excited about that. Welcome to our new members, and thanks to those reappointed for your continued participation and interest. And definitely Ecology will be engaged, and we look forward to starting the conversation on the 5-year plan. And that's all I've got today. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Other David Enan from EPA.
Good morning, all. It's good to see you, and really good to see the participation. I'll start off with kind of where David Bowen ended, and again, it's great news on the membership package, and really appreciate everybody being involved, and the time you devote to Hanford, and those the new members, really appreciate that you're volunteering to do that. So welcome. And much like David said, we've talked about this placemat for the last couple of years off and on, and it is a good communication tool of the large scale. But we implement through the tri-party agreement, and so that's where our the milestones, those reflect our ultimate priorities and everything else. That's where the even finer level of detail comes in, and we'll always go back to the tri-party agreement and milestone change any processes that have to go to reflect that. I will say we have not been involved in EM's strategic plan, so that's something else altogether. And I guess the kind of final request I have is please do engage. Please look at the materials, provide comments you think as you see fit. It's important. It's appreciated. It's valued. So again, just thank you, and I'll let you get back to your morning.
Thank you. So we want to have clarifying questions now. I've got some folks who said they want to be in the queue. We've got 5 folks who are here with us on the phone. Do any of the people on the phone have questions for DOE on what's in the placemat? Anyone on the phone? Okay. I'm not hearing anything right now, but it's kind of hard to see if you're on the phone raising your hand. So let's go to the queue. I've got Bob, Tom, Shelley, Tom, and Pam. So Bob Suyama, you're up.
Yes, and it's good to be here, a member again. My question is mainly about the holistic negotiations that are going on. They've been very quiet because they can't share it, but I'm assuming that both Brian and Ben have been involved with those. Have the 5-year plan, does that incorporate any of the thinking that's going on in the holistic negotiations that are going to change milestones or change dates?
I really can't comment on it too much. But I will just say that the discussions continue, and I think we're a lot closer than what I expected at this point, and they continue, and we've extended those because the conversations have been fruitful. But at this point, they're not changing at this point because we haven't put final proposals out there at this point or come to dates. We're in the conceptual discussion still of the milestones.
All right. So I want to let people know this, because this isn't a formal HAB meeting, anyone here in the meeting can ask a question and ask to be in queue. So I don't want people to think some folks can speak and some folks can't. That's not how this is working. So if you have a question, let us know and we will get you in the queue. Tom, Cecilia, Shelley, you're on deck.
Just a clarifying question. I know that you can't fit everything that you're going to be doing in those years on these little bullet lists. We had requested eventually to get sort of the next sub bullet level so we can see, where the investigation work is going to be happening and that type of stuff. But I noticed in 2023, there's no mention of the WESIF capsules. And I assume that's just because the construction is going to be ongoing but not started or completed, and so there's not really a shout out, but I just want to confirm that work will be ongoing in 23.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct, Tom. We're still moving forward.
Great, thanks.
All right, Shelley, and then Tom Galeotto, you're on deck. Shelley?
Thanks so much, Ruth. Thanks, everyone. A couple of things I'm thinking about. You mentioned that supercell, the new supercell that's going to be built at URDF in, I think it was 2026. And I'm wondering if you're anticipating any changes to the URDF acceptance criteria for waste streams at Hanford over the next few years.
No, we do not.
You do not. Okay, well, that's good to hear. And then, the other issue is, of course, the funding targets and for the next 5 years and how that plays out. And then what falls off the table that we just end up not talking about at all, which for me is bothersome, is our characterization efforts, specifically at our burial grounds and the need to continue remediation. And I find that, I think about that in terms of the Recovery Act money, that we were so shovel ready. We were able to really use that money when it came down the pipe and take care of what we call low hanging fruit at Hanford. There's still a lot of it. There's still a lot. And we're not talking about it. And we're not even getting to hear what you're talking about behind closed doors, which kind of flies in the face of collaboration and certainly transparency. So, I'm not just a little bit frustrated with that, but I'd like to understand more about what gets, when do we start talking about burial grounds? And I especially think about that in the context of unexpected, unplanned events. If DEFLAW gets up and running and we end up, hopefully not, but with a shutdown, and there's going to be a period of year or years when what we thought were facilities that were going to be running and processing aren't. Are we going to be able to see a redirect? And then how would we anticipate allocating that money if we haven't really done the characterization or started that look? So I'm thinking about it more globally, specific to Hanford, but certainly more globally as an issue. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll start on that, Shelley. Appreciate the question and the concerns. Specific to the burial grounds and really that entire mission. We recently renegotiated with David and his team the M91 milestones to be consistent with, WIP's receipt schedule and their extended life plan. And really, if I'm looking holistically at the RL mission, and again, all of our missions are starting to zipper up a little bit, but the RL mission I mentioned, and what you've probably seen pretty heavily in here, is a focus on the big cleanup projects for RL. So K, 324, WESIF. Beyond that, though, with infrastructure, DFLAW is the big show in town, and the tank waste mission is, and then the other big mission for RL, which takes place in the second half of this decade and really isn't highlighted here, but it is a great comment for you to submit, is that characterization work in the burial grounds, and then preparing us to begin shipments to WIP for our transuranics as well. The other question I think you got to a little bit was with contingency, and David touched on it, so I just wanted to add a little bit, and then Ben can clarify. With all of our projects and stuff through our project management process, we do have to account for management reserve as well as contingency funds when we're planning those. It's just that sometimes when the real world events happen, they exceed those amounts and cause those milestone shifts and things, which can be frustrating. But in a fiscally constrained environment, you're sitting there trying to balance the need for contingency versus making real cleanup progress. And when the Congress appropriates funds to us, those generally have specific tasks associated with them that they want us to go accomplish. And so if we were to set aside, 25% of our budget for contingency, that is not usually well received by appropriators either. Ben?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is there's been questions about the 5-year funding profile. It was, if you look at the front sheet that Brian started out with, it was a $2.5 billion escalated funding profile, and that's based on history. That doesn't mean that we're not going to ask for the requirements that we have to meet. We just had to make an assumption as part of the plan. So.
Thank you. There was a time when we had contingency monies and it was built in, and those days seem to be gone. But I think it's really important to think about management reserves and as we start moving into real operations and preparatory to the potential for those needs. Thanks.
But if you look at our contractors' schedules and those areas, we're not allowed to put contingency and management reserve in contracts.
I know.
But we can put them in schedules, and we do for snow days and other impacts. So those are built into schedules that we actually ask from our contractor.
I understand, and I appreciate you saying that. But I don't particularly care for that. I'd like to see something that was more global and really prepared us. Thanks.
All right, I have Tom Galeotto and then Pam Larson up after that, and we're working on clarifying questions, and we'll do the round robin after break. Tom.
Thanks, Ruth. First, I'd like to mention and if actually compliment DOE on posting the DFLAW animation on YouTube recently. It was very good, well understood, and I think it will go a long way to having the public more understand that process. So congratulations on that. I've got two questions. One was similar to the one Tom Cecilia just asked about WESF. And that is concerning 324. And on the 5-year plan this year, and I think it was the same as last year, the excavation is delayed now until 2025. And there's no activity at all shown in 2024. And I guess the question is, with that item being the priority that the HAB has identified and many others have identified as being critical to the cleanup of Hanford, why is there no major activity, I'll say, in 2023 for that task?
So there is, and I'm going to go back to the slide here to make sure we are progressing toward that soil remediation throughout the years. In there, I'm looking back here. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. River corridor, yeah. So we're completing in 23 the installation of the micropiles in 23. And so the micropiles will be set up there for the foundation. That leads us going into 24 to score the floor and begin that process, and then begin the retrievals. And I believe is actually complete the retrievals in 25. Sorry, it kind of runs together. Yeah, completing in 25. So it's not really highlighted there, but we'll continue that drumbeat along. I will say our new contractor there, under the new contracting format, the in-state contracting, has recently submitted their task order proposals to us, and those are under review for really how they're looking to handle the cleanup and sequence it, of course, in consideration of the milestones we have and other requirements that I talked about earlier. we're optimistic that they can potentially bring those schedules back, but most importantly to us is that they do the work safely. And as you'll recall, we had some challenges there with personnel contamination in the 2019 timeframe. And so we've invested significant time to work on worker training there and move at a very deliberate and safe pace to get that high-risk work completed.
Okay, thanks. I did have the years messed up a little bit. The no activity year was 2024. And I guess you're saying there that's when you'll be scoring the concrete.
Correct.
Preparation. Okay. I've got one other general question that you may or may not be able to answer. We're now, the site is moving obviously to get into the operational mode for some of these facilities. And I'm questioning whether or not you have a feel from DOE as to how that will shift the priorities and budgets. Meaning that if the operation, which is now going to be paramount for DFLAW once it begins, is that going to draw away critical funds on cleanup of the rest of the site unless you get additional appropriations for the annual funding for Hanford?
So that's a great question, because once we start DFLAW operations, which we've created a separate line for DFLAW operations, and it ramps up to close to $400 million a year for those operations. We anticipate that we're going to be getting additional funding to support, at least on the ORP side, high-level waste and other things, and RL will stay close to probably what they are at $1 billion a year. So we have communicated that with Office of Management Budget and our management, and they're very well aware of that need for that additional $400 million.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And so again, the underlying assumption of this is a flat budget profile for the purposes of the 5-year plan. And obviously other funds would allow us to move things around from a priority standpoint and help us out.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Pam, you're next, and Max Woods, you're on deck. Pam.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentations. I thought they were very understandable. I'm very excited to see end dates associated with the 324 building. Makes my heart happy. One comment on contingency, David and to Shelley, the HAB has been down this path many times. And in the past, when contingency was identified, I think Ben might have mentioned it, OMB will shift the money away, or Congress will shift the money away. So it's just a reality. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it functions. And so my question is associated with IDF. We've had some reviews going on, and I can't remember the acronyms, but it's surprising at this point in time when it was built so many years ago. Are those reviews done? Are any questions settled? And are we ready for operation of IDF?
Yeah, so from an IDF perspective, we've done some construction. I know it was built a while ago, but we had to do some modernization and upgrades to support really more of the offloading than the actual cell itself. That stuff is largely done. Really where we're at now is permitting perspective. We're working through the permitting process with our regulatory partners to get those in place. And then we have final readiness activities, which is DOE's self-check, where we come in with an external team, do an operational readiness review to ensure that our people are trained, our procedures are in place, and that our equipment is ready to execute that mission. So, that's one we're certainly eyeballing and look to have those complete by the end of 23 to support the DFLAW mission.
Thank you very much.
All right, Max, and then Chris, you're up next.
All right, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Good. All right, well, thanks. As of about 8 o'clock last night, I am officially on the Hanford Advisory Board. So thanks to everybody who made that happen, representing Oregon as the primary seat here. Question, Brian or Ben, maybe if you could talk just a little bit more about what needs to happen, particularly in the rate of funding, to get the high-level waste treatment plant back under construction by, I think you had 2025 on the placemat there. I assume, is there a slug of money that has to come through, or what exactly?
There is a slug of money that has to come through. I can't remember the exact dollar figures, but it ramps up. There's funding this year for the design activities, then it ramps up to what sticks in my mind is more than 300 million in like the 2025 time frame to resume the construction activities. A lot of the material has already been bought because we bought a lot of the material. We got 3 laydown yards of material. So a lot of the procurements have already happened. We've maintained that material. So we'll just have to ramp up the construction forces and bring them on board. But as you know, we did design, build. We were designing and building at the same time. So we put into place that we'll have 90% design done before we'll start construction. So the next couple of years we'll be advancing that design. So we have high confidence when we go out and install it in the field.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to Chris Sutton, and then a heads up, we've got 5 folks who have called in on the phone, and I want to check to see if there are any questions from people on the phone, and then we'll go back to the queue and Susan Lickband. So Chris Sutton, what's on your mind?
Ruth, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I discovered the sound problem. Got a major Windows 10 upgrade this past week, and that upgrade turned my sound off. So even though it looked like I had it on here, it was off.
Oh.
We saw your tech support helping you out, Chris.
Yeah. In comparing last year's 5-year plan with the 5-year plan that you've just discussed, it seems to me that initiation and completion date for a lot of the groundwater projects are slipping. That they're due to either be initiated or completed at later dates than they were maybe planned a year ago. Is that a valid impression, or am I imagining things?
That's not, at least, you know, we don't, I'm not aware of any deliberate strategy to delay those, and there haven't been funding challenges or anything of that sort. It could just be an artifact of the way we're building the sheet as well, you know, and we're not representing these in the proper way. So please, you know, submit that as part of your feedback, and we can look at that, because I want to make sure that we're telling the exact crisp story in the cleanest way possible.
And things like the BC rod were supposed to have been completed last year. They're this year. RDRA work plans are going to slide. The rod for 100K and 100N seem to be slipping out in years. So these are things I noticed.
We'll look into that. I can clarify the 100 BC is complete and signed off. That one we did get done this year.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. I want to take a quick check. We've got 5 folks on the phone. Are there any questions about the plan from folks who are only with us on the phone? If you're on the phone, *6 will unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself if you're on the phone. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, but I didn't want to leave the phone folks out. I have Susan Lickband and Jan Cottrell. Susan.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this presentation. A lot of information, so I probably won't have anything in the round robin. That being said, I'm curious if there is a particular element of this 5-year plan that you're looking to the Hanford Advisory Board with its expanded membership to provide you input on. Is there something in particular?
I'll go first. From my perspective, really just looking to see that this is representative of the community's priorities as well. And with the new membership of the board, as you highlighted, and our focus on environmental justice, we want to make sure that our priorities and decisions are aligned with the needs of the community, and that we're consistent, and then also that, of course, we're meeting our commitments in the tri-party agreement as well.
And I would say that, we're going to take input on the budget aspects of this. It might not be in the detail but it provides insight on what the major milestones are and what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what we're kind of looking for is, are the major milestones being hit from your standpoint as far as priorities go? Because once you start a project or an activity, you don't want to stop it. So you want to take it through to the end. So input early on is necessary to make sure that everybody's on board with those priorities.
Thanks. I have one more. Sorry.
Go
one more
for it.
slight question, and that is a lot of discussion about the IDF and the hopeful dumping of the DEFLAW logs into IDF. Is there any question about whether or not a cumulative site waste load, because some of that stuff's still going to be hot for a little while, I'm concerned about the groundwater, and is there an attempt to do some sort of site-wide waste load as you start filling up the IDF? And I assume that would have to be begun in the next 5 years. Kind of a risk assessment,
I'm not sure on that, to be honest with you, in terms of the assessment. I would assume that is ongoing. I do know, though, from a groundwater perspective, that is a lined facility, and we just actually replaced the leachate tank liners, which will collect that leachate and treat it at pump and treat to prevent further movement down toward the groundwater. But we'll have to get back to you on the question about the actual waste load.
Thanks. Nice to see you again, Ben. Smile.
Good to see you too.
All right, Jan Cottrell.
Okay, so
There you are.
thank you very much for the briefing. It seems to me that when the Placemat, the 5-year Placemat first came out, it was such an excellent tool that we were wondering why it wasn't updated annually. And now you've done it, and it's really excellent to see how things are kind of moving forward in a way that's very understandable. So my question has to do with what I would call a capital improvement project, this new water purification plant that I think is going to support DFLAW and the waste treatment plant. And I don't remember that there was any mention of it. And it seems to me that it is an expensive project. So I'm wondering how that's being accommodated.
Yeah, we just broke ground last week.
Cool.
There was one mention of it, and I can't remember what year it was. It was the water treatment plant in the tank waste section.
Thank you.
I don't have other questions. After the break, we will be doing a round robin for your comments, your reactions, those sorts of things. Josh from the facilitation team is actually taking notes at this meeting. So there's both a recording of this meeting and there will be notes from this meeting to augment getting feedback to DOE. And in addition, there is the survey link for you to do that directly as well. So a number of ways to weigh in on what you're thinking. Want to make sure that all your questions get answered before we take a break and do the round robin. Are there others who have clarifying questions around what's in the plan, timing, how stuff gets done? Anyone?
Ruth,
Tom
this
Galli-
is Shelley Simone. I do have one.
Okay, so Shelley, you go, and then Tom Galiotto, you're up next.
I'm kind of wondering about the bigger picture of how our 5-year plan gets presented to headquarters and then gets integrated into the 10-year strategic vision. And I have no sense if it does. And if it does, how that gets incorporated and what kind of feedback our site gets on that incorporation. I'm curious about that.
So if you went to, I think it's slide 3 or 4, when EM puts together their strategic plan, we take our 5-year plan and use that input to feed into that. It's got to hit a certain threshold because they're at a different threshold than we are, but we get to feed into that plan. So.
And one slide before that.
One slide before that. Right there. So.
And then, as I mentioned, it's an iterative process. We do, have quarterly site briefings with our headquarters, and then an annual site briefing. And these topics are brought up then. And so each quarter, we're going through these with, hey, here's our progress toward our objectives. Here's what's changed in the interim. Here are the things we need to change. And we have those discussions with them on at least that basis, if not much more frequently.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't catch it.
Tom Galiotto.
Thanks, Ruth. Just for clarification, you've shown the link for the survey to submit comments to DOE. Is the plan for individuals of the public and the HAB to submit these surveys independently to DOE? Is that the response that you're looking for from the HAB?
I'll defer to Gary on that, but we will take your feedback in any form you'd like to provide it. The important thing is that we get an opportunity to hear you all. That's kind of where I sit.
Gary?
We will take feedback.
Yes, sorry about that. We will go on and take the feedback either individually or collective in the form of advice from the HAB, Tom. So input is input, and we're welcoming it from whatever source we get it.
Okay, thank you.
Carrie, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, pretty much what Gary said. It can be either way. We have a survey for people to submit individually, which includes boxes for comment, or you could submit it as a board, whichever your preference is.
Okay. So, question from Jerry Paulette, and I think I'm also getting email questions, so I'm trying to juggle a little extra here. Steve Anderson, you have to leave and can't be here for the round robin. Is that correct? Okay. Jerry Paulette. You have a question?
Yes.
There you are.
I'd rather just be able to post it because I don't expect clear answer and people to see it. But why is there a November 22nd deadline for comment if you want input from the board? Since we won't have met between now and then, and we already gave input on the 10-year plan saying there should be public meetings and an iterative process for any strategic plan. So that seems to have been thrown out. But that's what we put in advice. So why is there a November 22nd deadline, and why isn't there an iterative process as we requested?
This is Carrie. Thanks for that, Jerry. We are open to extending the comment period. What we're trying to do is establish what the public needs for that. We set that date initially so that we could get comments compiled and submitted back up through the EM Strategic Vision public comment period, although it appears that they may be extending or theirs may be longer. So it's not, I mean, if we need to extend it, we will.
Question from Susan. Yes, Josh has been working with the Hanford webmaster to get the meeting materials for this meeting posted on hanford.gov. So even though it wasn't a formal HAB meeting, we actually created a little place on the HAB part of the website where the meeting notes, the agenda, the presentation will be, so you can go back and look at them, as well as the recording if you all want to replay. So Josh has just put that that link to the presentation there. Liz, yes, you're in queue. Liz.
No worries, Ruth. I was looking for the Hanford 5-year plan documents on hanford.gov, and if it could just be added to the meeting link for today. I have it now, and probably everyone does too, but it was all that was in there was the agenda link that I could see. Thanks.
Yeah,
Which the presentation is there, so it's helpful. Like Jen just said. So everything anyone needs, you can get it right now.
Okay. Sometimes there's a lag between requesting posting and posting happening, but the webmaster is usually really responsive to those last minute requests. Are there other questions? Anyone? You do not have to be a HAB member to ask a question in this meeting. So I don't want you to think you can't. So Brian and Ben, oh, Pam, yes. Pam and then Liz.
Okay, just a thought, if DOE has prepared a questionnaire for comments, I think it would be useful for the budget committee to look at that as a starting point for thoughts to compile. Thank you.
Liz.
Yeah, and we covered this a little bit, but in the assumptions on one of the slides where it says assuming 2.6 billion annual funding, when is the assumption that 2.6 starts?
22 going forward, and then what we did was just took an escalation each year, so it'll grow a little bit, you know, with inflationary stuff from a planning perspective. But we took that as a combined RL and ORP budget of 2.6 in 22. Even though we don't have a budget yet, we're on a continuing resolution under 21 enacted. It's just a planning assumption.
Okay, and then I guess my question is, what happens if funding levels are lower? Do you update the 5-year plan, or just kind of how is the 5-year plan changing as new information comes to the table?
Yeah, that's the iterative. It's a great question, and that's the iterative nature of the process. And what makes it tough, because you could theoretically have a 5-year plan that just changes, and in 4 years we're on Rev 88. But we try to kind of snap a chalk line for this year and then bring it in, you know, for next year. That was why the date is a little bit artificially set there in terms of Carrie was talking, we can move it. But yeah, if the 22 budget came in with something, you know, significantly higher than we planned on or something significantly lower, we'll definitely have to adjust our priorities, and certainly would include public engagement as part of that process.
Any other questions? We are running about 15 minutes early. My proposal to the group is that we take a break here at 10:30 to 10:45. reconvene at 10:45. And at that time, the strategy is I'm going to take the participant list that you all can see on your teams. Right now it says there are 51 of us here online. And literally use that list as if we're going around the room. So I'm not going to make a value judgment if you are a board member, a member of the public, a member of the press, a contractor, an agency person. I would just go down the list and invite anyone who has a comment or input to offer it at that time. And we would start with the people on the phone because the phone numbers come first, and literally go around the room. So that's the plan. And with that, I'd say, why don't we take a 15-minute break and convene at 10:45 Pacific time. Oh my gosh. So let's see, we've got people coming back. I've got the agenda up so people can see the plan. Here's the plan. So part of what we wanted to do today is give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts, their input, their initial reactions on the 5-year plan. So the idea is to go around the room, like we're going to pretend we're all around the room, and check in with people. If you have something to say, great, this is the time to say it. If you don't have something to say, you don't have to fill the airtime. So I'm not going to make a distinction between HAB members and members of the public and the press and contractors and whatever. I'm just going to go down the list and everybody gets an opportunity. You can speak, you cannot speak, totally up to you. And take a couple of minutes. Remember, there are currently 38 of us on the call. So a 20-minute sermon is probably a little long. So think a couple of minutes, what's on your mind, and share it. Josh is taking notes. This is also being recorded. So there are multiple ways we're going to get the information to DOE. Questions on what the plan is between now and wrapping up? Okay, I'm going to start with the folks on the phone. I have 4 phone numbers here, so I'm going to call out the last 4 digits of the phone number. If you have something to say, jump in and let us know what's on your mind. So 5356. You want to share some thoughts? *6 will get you off of mute. *6.
No, but thank you for the opportunity.
All right, glad you were with us. 6202, Tom, is that you? Tom, do you have stuff to offer? I see you're not muted, but we're not hearing you.
How about now?
There you are.
Okay, I had to *6 and then actually unmute my own telephone. Gotta love technology.
Right. So if you would share your name and your affiliation so people know who's talking.
Yeah, sure will. I'm Tom Rogers. I'm with the Washington State Department of Health. I'm kind of the scout that goes to the HAB meetings and the River and Plateau Committee meeting. My real job at the Department of Health is I'm the Eastern Washington team lead, and we primarily do environmental sample collection. Thank you for letting me sit in on this meeting. The 5-year plan placemat was sent forward to my supervisor and the supervisor of the Air Emissions Group, John Martell. You know, my only thing is I'm a former Army guy, and you never plan for the best scenario when you're conducting military operations. And my comment is that the devil's always in the details. With that, I'm going to shut up.
Thank you for being here. So I have 3190. Would you like to share your thoughts? *6 will get you off of mute. 3190 on the phone. Okay. 2499. Lorene, are you still with us from Yakima? And if so, do you have a comment you'd like to share? I see you're off of mute. Oops. You're muted again.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay. Took me a little bit to get the mute off. Yes, this is Lorene Contreras with Yakima Nation, and I just, want to thank everyone for the presentation and the information this morning. This is, really good to see, especially, inviting the community to, provide input. The Yakima Nation, always wishes for the best scenario in cleanup and, returning, our ceded lands to, pristine nature or as close to it as you can get. We have faced, challenges with communication with DOE in the past, and, we've been working collaboratively to, improve that process. And, so we have provided input, and we've, maintain the high level of communication to address the concerns that the Yakima Nation has. And, in seeing the 5-year plan, we're hoping that, the funding, can continue to, allow that process to continue. And I, think that's what's going to be most successful for everybody, is that, we have effective cleanup and, the funding that's, crucial to, allowing for that. So, like I said, we've been, communicating all along, and so we'll continue to do so. And so at this time, I'm, thank you again for, the presentations and information.
All right. Thank you, Lorene. So Bob Suyama, I'm going to ask your patience for like a minute. I got an email right before the break from someone who wanted to make a comment but couldn't. So this is from Steve Anderson. He says, "Sorry, I'm getting off the meeting call and heading to catch a plane, but I wanted to put my 2 cents in. My comment for the 5-year plan was restating what Ecology and others brought up. How can we define and budget for non-planned events? Clearly, we have a historical record of these events that makes it relevant for planning." So that is from Steve Anderson. And with that, we're just going to go down the list that we have of people who are on the call. And Bob Suyama, you're up.
Okay. And my comment follows along with what Steve just said and the ecology said earlier. A plan is only as good as the information that you know now. And so my concern is emerging issues. Like this year, we were impacted by DOE announcing there was a leaking tank. And a lot of concern was expressed about what's this going to do to the ongoing work that's going on, and should we do anything at all? And so the Tank Waste Committee did put together some advice, which is, I guess, been moved back to the December meeting because we didn't have a quorum before, but it appears we do now, so we should be able to take action. But one of the key issues will be if we decide to recommend or DOE decides to take action on this, how is this going to affect all the other projects that are planned? And how is the money going to flow? I guess one of the questions is, when there is an emerging issue, does DOE have the ability to move the money from one project to another to address these? And so it's truly one about ability to respond to unknown events. And that's my comment. Oh, and I'm Bob Siama, representing Benton County on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got some folks we've lost at the break. So those who are offline, I will jump over. Chris Sutton, you're up. What's on your mind?
I was just thinking that it might be nice to see the 5-year plan, at least the last couple of years of it, maybe formatted a little differently, or have another page or so with a different format where you had the major PBSs for RL and ORP, and then the major critical items that were planned for each PBS. It would take it down another level, but I think it would be more informative if somehow we could see the work, major work, the critical items per PBS. That's my comment.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Jerry Paulette, your turn in the round robin. All right. Would you like me to read what you have shared in the chat, or would you like to say it yourself?
I would quickly say it that, during the break, I went to the form provided, and I was shocked that there is no place for normal public comments to be submitted, including, for example, the comments that I've shared in the chat from Heart of America Northwest. Rather, it's a biased survey form that was put together by USDOE. Bizarrely, the form asks what you would defer if USDOE receives less funding, but doesn't ask what you would urge USDOE to seek more funding for. And what do you think of the fact that USDOE has based its 5-year plan on failing to ask for full funding? I've never seen such a thing as only having a survey form created by the agency for public comment on something it says it wants to take serious public comment on. It's really disturbing, along with the timeline. Our view of this is that meaningful public comment and involvement, as we said on the 10-year plan, should be a well-designed process with public regional meetings. A strategic plan is an iterative thing that requires meaningful regional public comment. It should be integrated with the cleanup budget priorities meetings in the spring every year. It would integrate well. And I think that the board should, again, advise on that. And basically, this process is not a meaningful public process. A morning meeting on something as important as the 5-year plan that will guide cleanup is no different than no meeting for the public on the 10-year plan. And it's very disturbing to me and to Heart of America Northwest. And we'll be letting our, the regional congressional delegation and others know that this is just not what USDOE EM said it was committed to in terms of a iterative public process for input to strategic planning.
Thank you, Jerry. Jan Cottrell, you want to contribute to the round robin?
Yeah, I'm just unmuting here. So maybe, well, surprisingly, coincidentally, my comment is kind of echoes what Jerry was saying, that even though I understand that the 5-year plan and the placemat really is talking about proposals of work that needs to be done and what the priorities are, I think that there may not be any place on the 5-year plan or on the placemat that acknowledges the importance of public participation. And in particular, you know, I'm so happy that the packets have now been approved, but really after a very long processing time. I'm wondering if the agency is involved in any way in trying to mitigate this excessively long processing time in order to make the public input as important as we believe that it is. So some people have been waiting for maybe a year, really, for an opportunity to talk in a way that reflects their position on the board. And I think all of the boards across the nation are probably wondering the same thing. So I think it's really important for the 5-year plan to at least acknowledge that this is an important part of the path forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. Denise Jones, would you like to contribute?
Yes, please. Hi, I am a new board member, baby board member here, and I don't know anything about anything, but I am curious. Looking at the website, there's only the 5-year plan placemat and then little, although beautiful and professionally made, snippets about different things. There's no text-heavy documents to help fill us in on really what DOE is hoping to do over the next 5 years. Does anyone have a lead on where to find that, if it exists? And if not, maybe could we find out why it doesn't?
I think, go ahead.
This is Jen Colborn. So you're correct in that it is just the placemat. It's supposed to be kind of a high-level overarching document that provides you the information that's going to be initiated or completed in the next 5 years. So there isn't another document that sort of links up with that. But I will take that back to DOE. Thank you.
And this is Carrie Meyer at DOE. So just, you're going to the 5-year plan website, correct? That has links to all of the project fact sheets?
Yes.
Okay, and you're actually, and it's got the EM strategic vision, which is super high level. So you're actually looking for more details than what's there?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
We've got an internal document that just gives a general description of those projects. Let me go through it and see about getting it posted.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for the comment. We just figured that the project fact sheets were at a high enough level that it would kind of give you that. I will share that the descriptions aren't super detailed. It's more, this is what this is, and this is why it's important.
Right.
Thanks.
And Denise, can you remind us what your seat is on the board?
I am with Citizens for Clean Eastern Washington.
Thank you. That was actually a note-taking question. Josh, do you want to weigh in, or do you just want to take notes?
I'll continue taking notes. Thank you.
Okay. I told you all I'm going down the list, and if you're online, I'm going to call your name. Kelsey Shank, would you like to contribute to the round robin? Okay. Leslie Koenig, are you still with us, or are you offline now? I know she was with us this morning. Oh, you're here. Would you like to participate in the round robin? No comments right now. Okay, Liz Matson.
Thanks, Ruth. I guess I'm going to echo a few comments that have been made that I think the agencies could work with the Public Involvement Committee to improve the 5-year plan public engagement process moving forward. This is better than the last time we had a chance to weigh in on the 10-year vision from headquarters, but I think there's room for improvement, including, and maybe this could be clarified, there is an email address that is a part of the that page for the 5-year plan. Is that not for submitting public comments?
This is Jen. And one thing I want to clarify too is that this isn't like a typical public comment period. It's not like a circular record requirement. We're kind of calling it a public engagement. But by all means, if you've got questions or said comments, you can filter those in through that email account. I will be checking those daily. So.
Okay, thanks. So I think that could be helpful. I just assumed that we would send comments there until Jerry had that question. The other piece that I wanted to share was this issue with contingency funding for things going wrong. I think needs more development and figuring out a way to have that actually be worked into the budget. And also just, it seems like it may be an educational barrier with Congress also, and maybe with OMB, that there needs to be funding available every year for things to go wrong, because they will, which has been echoed by many people. And maybe that's a great forum for a good public forum topic. Things that haven't gone wrong yet, but will, may be more palatable for a public conversation versus things that are going wrong currently. And I think would generate public interest on how to plan for that and make it, think about funding. And as part of that, we talk about planning for future tank leaks. But I feel like a piece that might be missing is laying the groundwork for dealing with those leaks, which is part of that funding, but it's more complicated. And from Hanford Challenge's perspective, it involves things like building new tanks and planning for that now. So you're not getting to the point where we are with B109, where you have tank waste going into the ground, that at this point doesn't seem like there's a plan to eventually go after that leak tank waste beyond pumping and treating the groundwater. And yet it's something we know is going to happen. It's going to take a long time to get the tank waste out of the tanks and treated, even if everything goes perfectly according to plan. So I think having some space to talk about how to make that happen would be great, and find a funding stream for that. And also just going back to a time, which I hear, once OMB has the budget, once OMB is holding the budget numbers, it can't be shared, but there was a time before OMB held the budget numbers where there could be a frank and public discussion about what the request would be handing to OMB. And now, since it's handed so late in the process, it kind of covers that hidden from the public place. And I just think there should be more creativity to open that up. But thanks for the opportunity to come and holding a meeting today. Thanks.
All right, Marissa, I'm really glad you got your teams to behave and connect you. Would you like to participate in the round robin?
Sure. What I have to say kind of goes along with what Bob, Denise, and Liz said. I also would like to see more documentation and also an emergency plan, similar to what Liz said, a plan to deal with leaking tanks such as B109, because we can't expect everything will go as planned, and it may be hard to anticipate what will be the next leaking tank, and will that so just a plan to deal with an emergency plan to deal with leaking tanks so that you can stop the leaks as fast as possible, even if it doesn't fall in line with the schedule.
Thank you, Marissa.
Those are my comments. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Pam Larson, do you have comments?
Okay. So I understand everyone's desire to plan for contingencies and put it in the budget, but I'm telling you, until Donovan Robinson retires from OMB, we can't do it. And it is absolutely good and right. There's no question about it. But I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Robinson, and he does not budge. So we're in a bad situation in terms of having backup plans. And we can have backup plans, just can't put them forward as a budget request. Anyway, I really appreciated the whole presentation. The things that I've been worried about are coming forward, particularly the cesium and strontium capsules, getting out of the basins into dry storage. That's the biggest risk as far as I'm concerned right now, from a local government perspective in terms of accident scenarios. Also, 324 building, also very encouraged with progress there. So one of the things I actually printed out the documents as they were being discussed for the years, and I can't find where we initiate construction on HLW again. Is there someone on the phone that can point me to which year that is in?
Which year what is in, Pam?
Begin to return to construction on HLW.
So I think it's actually, if it's, let me look really fast. I think it's in this year or next. Let me look really fast. So,
I think it's in 2025.
yeah, that's right. That's what it says, yeah.
25. Okay, thank you. And then also in regards to our engagement on the budget, I think DOE has done a good job of explaining to us where we can participate, and that's in the development of the budget that has not yet been submitted by Hanford to headquarters. And that's where our opportunity is, and they're encouraging us to look out to future years for our advice. And the budget is embargoed by the administration. It's not Hanford officials, it's not DOE headquarters. So we just need to look at our timing and where we can be most effective. Thank you very much. That's it.
All right. So I'm going down the list, and then when I hit the end of the list, I'm going to double check to see if I accidentally missed anybody or anybody slipped into the list while we weren't looking. So we're down to Shannon Cran. Shannon, would you like to participate in the round robin?
Sure. So mine is a broader scale comment about the public involvement conversation that we're making possible today. And I really appreciate the presentations and being able to have this conversation. And thinking as an educator and as a rep for UW, I would really love to have the DOE as part of these conversations articulate what the future of the site looks like to them, what, like in these five cleanup mission goals that are provided on the placemat. One of the things is, talking about ensuring long-term protection of human health and safety and environmental resources. And I know that that is sort of contingent upon how we imagine future use of the site or what kinds of activities are planned for particular areas where these cleanup actions are taking place. So just to make it more legible broadly to the publics that you're trying to engage with and involve, I would really like just like plain language discussion about what future are we trying to make possible on the site in specifics. I feel like I have a sense of a lot of technical cleanup plans and actions and funding, and I really appreciate that. And as someone who's trying to work with and communicate with the public about the Hanford cleanup in really non-technical terms, having that kind of information as part of these materials and presentations would really, really make this conversation more grounded for people who aren't already experts or really well-versed in the process. So that's my main comment, a broad overview about how we tell stories about Hanford and how we talk about the future that we're trying to achieve in and through these really detailed cleanup actions. Thank you so much.
All right. Shelley Simone.
Okay, am I here? I'm here.
You are here.
So, gosh, I want to say welcome to Denise Jones. And as you can tell by my hair, I'm one of the old guard. I've been around a long time. It's a good day. It's good to hear that we've got a BC rod. I'm really excited about that. And I wanted to say that. And I'm also really hopeful for DEFLAW. Things are moving and progressing as they should, from my perspective, and I've been able to glean. And as we move from startup to operations, I think it's really a wonderful time for our site. There's a global concern that I've heard so far from the health agency, from ecology, from our board members, and possibly the public. I haven't heard. My name is Shelley Simone, and I represent Columbia Riverkeeper on the board. For Denise and those that are new, we need to figure out a way to deal with contingency and acknowledging that there may be missteps, and then having the funding and the planning in place to deal with that. I really think Chris's idea of looking at the PBSs is smart, and for a number of reasons, but one of the main ones is that it gives us a real opportunity to weigh what we're doing and the weight of what we're doing against what falls below the line, and allows us to, as organizations and as individuals, really reach out to lobby in ways that we can't as a board for the funding necessary, and building contingency into what is a multi-decade long process here at Hanford to get this site cleaned up. You know, as we start to really narrow down over time and other sites fall off as they're finishing their completion, it's going to be even harder for us. And I think that we need an incredibly educated team of individuals in the Pacific Northwest that are willing to lobby and champion continued cleanup when there are less voices at the programmatic level across EM. I think that's something to think about. We need to deepen our knowledge, and I think that Chris's idea is really brilliant, and that very much would help us. I think that we've weighed in multiple times about WESIF, about the move that we need to have to transfer those capsules into dry storage. I don't think this is an aggressive enough schedule. I feel like one thing we should be asking for is really a transfer of funding or more funding to really see a continuous flow of activities from through the process of getting those capsules into dry storage, and see if we can't even bump it up a year and get them in by 2025 instead of 2026. This doesn't feel like an aggressive enough schedule for me, and I guess that's it. That's what I've got on my list right now. Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, everyone.
Tom Cecilia.
Hi, my name is Tom Cecilia, and I represent Oregon on the board. And I just want to say I really like this sort of October introduction to the placemat. It sets up the conversations for potential cleanup priorities advice in February, assuming we get meetings on a normal year. And I think maybe it might be worth talking about through the EIC about adding this to to the calendar, as a recurring every year for the HAB, just as an introduction to the cleanup priorities. We'll still need to get the sub bullets that don't really fit well on the page to actually do the sausage making, but it's a great start. I was wondering, I don't see anything about the recommendations from the Rascal team for investigation and cleanup there. I'd like to see where those fit into the 5-year plan, and how this work is set up for success in the off years. For instance, the WIP transuranic waste shipments start in 2028, which is a couple years after this plan, and continue for a couple decades. So what do we need to do now to make sure we have all of the transuranic waste that's going to be remediated and bound for WIP, make sure that gets identified, characterized, decided upon, planned, and dug? That's not a quick process. So we need to start thinking even further than 5 years to make sure that all of the transuranic waste gets to WIP before it shuts down. Some areas to start. Shelley mentioned the solid waste burial grounds. There's also a record of decision for 200 CW5, PW1, 3, and 6, which is potentially shovel ready, and that's transuranic waste that could go to WIP in 2028 potentially. So, thank you.
Thank you. Tom Galeotto, you may get the award for having to wait the longest, but you're up next.
Well, thank you. And this is Tom Galeotto, previously public at large, and this is my coming out assignment presentation for representing TRIDEC. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I do have a few comments, and just, of course, being last on the list, or near last at least, a lot of the topics have been discussed by the previous presenters here, and I agree with most all of those. I did want to address a couple of them and then make a comment in general about the 5-year plan. Pam mentioned budgets and the input to the budgets, and this might be a good way to have an avenue to input the budget information from the HAB to DOE. Frankly, we've gone through a lot on this subject, and as the BCC chair, we've done a lot of work to try to change things and to get into the mode where we actually can contribute meaningful information beyond cleanup priorities alone. In other words, budget information related issues. And we've been unsuccessful at that. Currently, there's a draft piece of advice that, as I understand, is being considered by DOE management as to whether or not they would recommend that we issue it. I don't know where else we can go with the ability to affect the budget. Another topic is, I really do like, and Shelley mentioned it as well, I like Chris's idea of getting more information that is presented currently on the 5-year plan in order to understand the details of the activities that are listed. It's been an age-long problem where we set priorities and have in our mind the critical priorities that should be accomplished for cleanup. And each one of those critical priorities has 20 different or more different activities that have to go on in advance of accomplishing that we don't really either understand or know what's in the queue for those items. So it would be helpful to get more information, as Chris suggested. One way to do that may very well work. I think it needs some discussion, but it would be nice to have some additional data on what are the key activities tied into the major milestone type priority activities that we have. That would be a big help for, I think, all of us. Bob mentioned the B109 briefly in the context of emerging issue funding. I'd like to mention it more directly as part of the 5-year plan. Right now, our understanding is DOE, or at least my understanding is, DOE has taken the position that there's no activity needed for that, and that because it's 25 years or whatever the number is of time before any of that water leaking from B109 would get into the water table and ultimately to the river. They feel that, I'm not talking for them, but I understand they feel that It's business as usual because we already have monitoring wells, we have groundwater processing, and those functions are in place. However, as I recall from the draft advice that Bob mentioned that we'll now be considering, I guess, in December, one of the points that struck me when I read that draft advice was that the DOE has no recovery plan for a single shell tank leak. In other words, no identified plan of response to an identified single shell tank leak. If that's correct, I really think that needs addressed. And really, it's in the tank waste area, so I'll defer to that organization. But it seems to me that should at least somehow be covered in the 5-year plan. And finally, the 5-year plan has many activities on it that are a mixture of activities and milestones related to key critical functions, key critical cleanup activities, and many others that are part of the infrastructure upgrades that are needed, and then also some supporting information, various plans, permits, documents, rods. All of those things are needed. All of those things are part of the overall picture. But when we identify as a HAB a critical item to move the capsules, the WESIP capsules to final storage on the concrete pad, there are many activities leading up to that we probably don't fully understand or appreciate. It would be helpful, my comment therefore is on the 5-year plan, it would be helpful if DOE could identify items with a parenthetical letter at the end of each item that says whether it's a critical cleanup activity related, if it's supporting activity related, or if it's an infrastructure activity. It would help us a lot to get a better feel for whether or not our priority of moving capsules, WhatsApp capsules, is really being followed year by year by year leading up to the completion, or if it's just ignored in 1 year, which it appeared to be, to me at least, as per our earlier question. So those are my comments. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I'd like to double back in case there's anybody with us who wants to participate in the round robin that I failed to identify. Are there others with us who want to jump in on the round robin? Anyone? Emmett.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. It was well appreciated, and I was glad to hear that. I was worried about not the treatment plant, but the water treatment plant, the new one, because I'd heard there were some issues regarding the contract and getting that all started. So I was happy to hear that the plant got started. I mean, the ground was broken, and we're on our way, because that's a critical piece to success of the VIT plant working. So thank you for everything. And thank you for all you people that put this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmett. Are there others who would like to participate in the round robin?
Ruth, this is Chris. I have another comment.
You have another comment? Okay.
Yeah. Someone asked what PBS stands for. PBS, there are different definitions, but it's basically stands for Project Breakdown Structure. For example, RL has major PBSs called RL30, which is for soil and water remediation, RL40, which is for nuclear facility D&D, RL20, which is for safeguards and security, and ORP has similar PBSs. But the thing about PBSs is this is the way funding is allocated to the site. It's not allocated by River Corridor or Central Plateau or tank farms. It's allocated by PBS, And each PBS may have numerous sub-projects under it, each of which has its own unique numerical identifier. So really, it's a way of accounting for funding allocated to various projects. And these PBSs maintain the same year after year after year. So you can trace, it's easy to trace funding over multiple years and see how it changes. But that's basically what a PBS is.
All right. And for those of you who are just learning to speak Hanford, it is an acronym heavy place. One of the resources that might help you out is at hanford.gov. If you go to the website and search on acronyms, there is an acronym function on the website. You can type in an acronym and it will actually tell you what it stands for. So acronyms at hanford.gov might be a good friend here near term. Jerry, did you want to also augment your comments from earlier? I saw something in the chat. And Joshua has put the link to the acronyms page on hanford.gov for those of you who would like to those translation services. Is there anyone else who would like to participate in the round robin and share your thoughts? I don't want to leave anybody out. All right. We will put the survey link in this week's Hab Happenings weekly update. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, there is a document that the facilitation team sends out every Thursday afternoon that has announcements, upcoming meetings, links to current correspondence, sort of a one-stop snapshot of what's going on. If you are not a member of the HAB, you can still get the weekly update. Just send a note to HAB, H-A-B, at slind.net, and we would be happy to add you to the interested parties list, and you can get that weekly. Tom Galeotto has a question. Tom, what's your question?
This, or if we're going to head right into wrap up, so I thought I'd better ask it now. What is the HAB's opinion on where we go from here in terms of submitting comments to the 5-year plan?
My best answer, and Shelley will help me if I screw it up. My best answer is that the Executive Issues Committee has a call a week from today, and that would be the place to identify what, if any, next steps the board would like to take.
Ruth, I would just like to mention that I think I saw something that said that the meeting, the EIC meeting, might be on the 29th. And I just want to get assurance that it's on the 27th.
It is Wednesday. Oh gosh, where's my calendar? It is Wednesday from 1 to 3. Wednesday's the 27th, right? Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's because this wasn't a formal HAB meeting. We didn't actually have the process way to create an IM team and actually answer your question directly, Tom. So the next best opportunity is the EIC call on the 27th at 1 o'clock.
We can decide at that time if we want to form an IM team and go forward with a list of advice, and we'll take it, from there, but not at this meeting. So,
right.
Thanks, Tom.
Right. And for those new members, if the process stuff is confusing, we're working on an orientation for you. In the meantime, the hab@slind.net email. If you need help, send us a note and we would be happy to help you. All right. With that, Carrie, It's unusual for us to do this without a chair. I'm used to co-facilitating with a chair, and I'm the chair next to me is empty. But for wrap up, I'm going to invite Carrie Meyer to sort of closing thoughts and wrap up our time together.
Thank you, Ruth. Sorry, I'm having some setup issues apparently. There, oh, let's see. Hopefully that'll work. My machine is being difficult. All right. So this is my life right now. I'll just do it like this. Maybe it'll work. Okay, it's a little crooked, but oh well. So as I fight with this, so I did want to thank everyone for coming today and appreciate the comments. This is an evolution of process for us. And while the 5-year plan snapshot that we do is it's not a requirement. It's not required by EM. It's something that we develop to provide just that snapshot to the public on the critical activities that we have based on assessed risk and legal milestones, requirements, as well as input from the public. And focusing, and I heard several of you reiterate that, but focusing comment on those years, those out years that have not yet started the budget formulation or the appropriation process really does provide us the most constructive input. We'll have another opportunity to look at the FY24 priorities late this spring or early this summer when we do the cleanup priorities workshop. And that's where we'll really focus on the FY24 priorities again, so that we can get that input and use it to help us develop our FY24 budget formulation. So lots of opportunities, and we'll continue to work on this and help advance it. Appreciate everyone's time today, and I really do appreciate your flexibility. Thankfully, the HAB membership package is now approved, and so that's one good piece of news. So have a great day, and thanks.
All right. With that, I guess I should apologize. We didn't take the whole time, but enjoy your lunch, enjoy your afternoon, and you'll get the weekly update tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your time.